Chattanooga. It's Palm Sunday, and we're going to celebrate by greeting the Christ within ourselves, one another. Let's rise and shine and greet your neighbor. Hi, everybody at home. Do the same thing with yourself personally. Oh, magnify the Lord. Oh, Spirit is worthy to be praised. Oh, magnify the Lord. Spirit is worthy to be praised. Hosanna, blessed be the rock. Blessed be the joy of all creation. Hosanna, blessed be the rock. Blessed be the rock of all creation. Oh, magnify the Lord. Spirit is worthy to be praised. Oh, magnify the Lord. Spirit is worthy to be praised. Hosanna, blessed be the rock. Blessed be the joy of all creation. Hosanna, blessed be the rock. Blessed be the joy of all creation. Oh, magnify the Lord. Spirit is worthy to be praised. Oh, magnify the Lord. Spirit is worthy to be praised. Hosanna, blessed be the rock. Blessed be the joy of all creation. Hosanna, blessed be the rock. Blessed be the joy of all creation. Oh, magnify the Lord. Spirit is worthy to be praised. Hosanna, blessed be the rock. Blessed be the joy of all creation. Hosanna, blessed be the rock. Blessed be the joy of all creation. Blessed be the joy of all creation.
Thank you, Landis, for sharing your musical talents and energy and joy with us today. We're so blessed to have you.
Blessed to be here.
Well, good morning and welcome to Unity of Chattanooga, our Sunday celebration services. We are here to celebrate, honor, and affirm the one divine presence in everyone. We are one earth, one people, and one heart. My name is Mona Petro, and I serve as your president of the Board of Trustees here at Unity. I'm joined today by Rev Doug, who will be talking about Unity's 5th basic principle in living a way of life that will serve you well. Unity of Chattanooga is a loving, accepting, heart-centered spiritual community made up of a diverse group of people. We believe that we are all individualized expressions of God, and we embrace the unity principles that teaches the life-affirming, practical Christianity. We know that there are many places that you can be today, but we're glad you're here this morning, and we're honored that you have chosen us to share your morning with. Here we are surrounded by friends in person, and also those who have joined us virtually, all connected in mind and heart, and we know the spiritual journey is much more fun when we do it with like-minded people. If you're watching from Facebook, we invite you to let us know that you're here and say something in the comments section. Also, be sure and like us. If you're inspired by what you hear, you can share the services with friends and family. Okay. Today is Palm Sunday, and our affirmation for the Unity Daily Word is, I celebrate and welcome the Christ. In the Christian traditions, this is when we celebrate Jesus Christ's entry into Jerusalem for Passover over 2,000 years ago. Metaphysically, through Jerusalem's symbolization, a perfect place of peace, and the crowds represent humanity's joyous response to the presence of the Christ among them. Today we claim this peace as our own and celebrate the awareness of the Christ presence that's within all of us. So let's start by turning our attention to that Christ presence within. Rev Doug, if you'll come up and we'll light the candle, and also please silence your phones while you're thinking about it.
Thanks, Mona.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mona. Well, Unity's foundation is prayer. Prayer and meditation. It's the tools that we use on our spiritual journey. And so this morning, as we celebrate that Christ presence, as we think of the light of God as love and wisdom that flows through every thought that we have during prayer, we light the Christ candle. And we take just a moment right now to go within. So I invite you to take a big, deep breath, let it go. And simply know that that presence and power that we call God is right here and right now. Flowing through every thought, flowing through every feeling, and flowing through every part of your body. Bringing you guidance, bringing you love and wisdom, bringing you a state of awareness that no matter what is going on in your life, all is truly well. And so we give thanks right here and right now. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.
I'm taking my freedom, putting it on the shelf, putting it on a chain, wearing it around my neck. I'm taking my own freedom, I'm putting it in my car. Wherever I choose to go, it will take me far. Living my life like it's golden, 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 living my life like it's golden. I'm taking my own freedom, putting it in the song, singing loud and strong, grooving all day long. I'm taking my freedom, I'm putting it in my stroll. I'll be high stepping, y'all, letting the joy unfold. I'm living my life like it's golden, 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 golden. I'm holding on to my freedom, can't take it from me. I was born into it, it comes naturally. I'm strumming my own freedom, playing the God in me, representing glory. God is so proud of me, living my life like it's golden, 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 golden, living my life like it's golden, 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 life is golden.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
That makes me
literally
smile.
today.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Boy, that'll crank you up, won't it? Well, welcome to the final week in our series on the 5 foundational unity principles. Now, if this is your first time with us this morning, or if for some reason you've missed a couple of the previous talks on these principles, those principles are simply, number 1, there's only one presence and one power in the universe, God the good, omnipotent. Yeah. Number 2, we're made in the image and the likeness of God and have a spark of divinity within us, which is what we call the Christ presence. And number 3, we create our experience by the activity of our thinking, which is a combination of our conscious and our unconscious beliefs, thoughts, feelings, and actions. And number 4, prayer is the highest activity of our mind, which heightens the connection with God-mind and brings forth all things good, brings forth wisdom, beliefs, prosperity, everything that we can imagine that's good in our life. And lastly, which is our talk for today, knowing and understanding these laws of life is not enough. We must live them to the best of our ability. Now, before we go too much farther today, it's important to understand that 5 talks on these principles is only going to scratch the surface of the intricacies and the workings of spiritual law that we hold to be true. It's a good foundation from which to start, but most likely many of you have or will have more questions today than when we started. It's important to ask these questions because the questions that are coming up for you are the cutting edge of your understanding. That's why they are there. They are the very doors that you need to walk through in your life to take the next step on your spiritual path. In many cases, working with the answers to those questions will lead you to a greater manifestation in your life. And what I can tell you is that I've been searching for answers to many of these questions for as long as I can remember. And I've been receiving answers to those in quiet moments of reflection, and sometimes even as a little guy. And what brought me to unity was finding a theology that asked those same spiritual questions that I was asking and matched the answers that I'd already been given or chose to believe up to that point. Practical answers that made sense. And when I worked with those concepts and applied them, I found out that they did very well in my life. So I encourage you to ask questions. Now, 3 weeks from today will be an opportunity to do just that. Next week is April 17th is Easter, and we'll have a special Easter service and message. In the following week, on April 24th, Reverend Fayen will be talking about the first of Charles Fillmore's 12 powers, faith, and then on May 1st is the opportunity to ask questions. Now, I won't have a prepared talk that morning, maybe a few short introductory remarks and a brief recap on the 5 principles, but after that, we'll pass the microphone and where you can ask questions, and I'll share my thoughts with what I believe to be true. And you don't necessarily have to believe it. Now, one other thing we do have a wireless mic, so what we can do that Sunday is we can come, I'll be right out there and pass the mic around, you can ask those questions. If you're a little shy about raising your hand and asking a question, then simply remember that the question that you have is probably the same question that a lot of other people have. So don't feel alone or you're going to stand out. If you're still a little bit too nervous about it, you'll find slips of paper in the back that look just like this, and you'll see a big brown basket there. And feel free to write out your question, put it in the basket, And then on that day, we'll take those out and we'll use them as probably the basis for what I talk about that day. But for those of you who have ever tuned in on Wednesday to Shannon and I on our podcast, it's always more fun to do it live. By the way, we did this many years ago, following a series of 5 principles, and the response that we got from the congregation was so great that it actually took us 2 services to answer all those questions. And believe it or not, it wasn't because I was long-winded. There was a lot of questions. So living our truth, this fifth principle, may seem self-explanatory about walking your talk, about taking action to create the circumstances and things that we want to experience in our life, but it's really much, much more than that. It's about creating a personal spiritual practice of prayer and meditation, becoming aware and familiar with our inner thoughts, with those inner beliefs and ideas that are running just below our conscious awareness. It's about developing a regular study program of spiritual authors and principles. Now, we know that since we attract the circumstances and experiences in our life through our thinking, using our free will and our unconscious, culturally programmed thoughts and beliefs, all of those are working, it follows that our spiritual work is to continuously monitor our thoughts and feelings and continuously create thoughts and feelings in the direction we want to go for the highest and the best of all concerned. This will create a field of possibilities with variations that mirror all the sum total thoughts that you have going on within you. We then have to be receptive to the guidance we are given for the wisest choice among all those alternatives for the direction that we are to take and follow through with action, both mentally and in the material world. Recently I had a visit to my doctor's office, and while I was sitting there, I noticed something printed and framed on the wall, and here's what it said. By the way, I asked her for a copy of that, and which she gave me, and this is what it said. Our thought life, not our circumstances, determines our happiness and joy. Major premise, we can control our thoughts. Minor premise, our feelings come from our thoughts. Conclusion, we can control our feelings by learning to change how we think. Axioms of life based on these premises. Our attitude, which is our feelings, okay? Our attitude determines our approach to life. Our attitude determines our relationships with people. Often our attitude is the difference between success and failure. Our attitude at the beginning of a task will affect its outcome more than anything else. Our attitude can turn problems into blessings. Our attitude can give us an uncommon positive perspective. I was absolutely thrilled to see that in a doctor's office. I don't know about your doctor, but I was beside myself when I read that. And by the way, I have copies of it up here for those of you who would like to have a copy of it. It speaks directly to the creative process that we've been talking about and how we use those in our life. It starts with our thoughts, and we have the ability to mentally visualize many things in many ways and to choose how we want to respond. And our feelings are the mirror to our thoughts, reflecting the spiritual and consciousness energy of them, for better or for worse, and is the energy that will color and determine the outcome of our actions. Now, a few months ago, we talked about Hawkins' scale of consciousness. Does anybody remember some of that? Okay. So, when you have a thought, and you pause for a moment and you connect with your feelings, do you feel the energy of guilt and shame, which is very low and self-defeating and probably won't amount to anything? Is it fear or anger, which are action-oriented, but will attract similar responses and probably a little retaliation, depending on who you're talking to? Or is it a higher energy of courage, reason, and even love, which will create a corresponding result? The thoughts and actions that you choose are your choice, and your feelings are what are going to guide you. Now, we can lie with our thoughts, but our emotions and the corresponding feelings in our body will never lie to us. That's why when you have multiple ways of reacting, pause for a moment. Feel that emotional response to those options, and notice any feelings in your body. How many of you ever had a gut feeling? Okay, a little tension, or all of a sudden you had an idea, you had a response, and oh, that feels so good. That's what I'm talking about noticing the feelings in your body. And then obviously choose the highest and the best. And by the way, this is the basis of the science of kinesiology, which is sometimes called muscle testing, which many in the healing professions are now practicing and using. If you're not familiar with it, we'll talk a little bit more about that in upcoming talks and classes. Now, by this time in these talks, you've probably wondered whether these powers can be misused. Well, the answer is yes, they can. We all have these powers, whether we realize it or not, and many choose to use them unwisely. All you have to do is look at the human condition in our courts, in our prisons, and tune into the nightly news, and you'll see that all over the place. Depending on your focus and your energy, we can create situations that harm ourselves and others. But the law of cause and effect, which is manifestation based on our thoughts, is a perfect balancing tool to help us self-correct if we know how to use it. And that's why we constantly stress being a co-creator with God, as opposed to be just a conscious co-creator. The 20th century had some of the greatest examples of people who knew how to use these powers and did use them consciously. One of the greatest, hold on to your seats, one of the greatest was Adolf Hitler, but he didn't partner with God and it didn't go very well. Yes? Okay. Mahatma Gandhi, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. were both very well versed in their spiritual and religious foundations. They knew these thoughts and how to use them, and the good that they started survives to this day. Now, once you become aware of these powers to create, it's natural for folks in our culture to what? Want more stuff, right? The marketing people are great at talking about this and creating demand. The more stuff you have, the happier you'll be, right? And then Unity says, visualize that new car, visualize the promotion, visualize the partner, and voila, it shows up. Well, yes, we can use these thought principles for material gain. And a certain amount of affluence is good and it's healthy. But if you want more stuff to make you happy, you might need to look a little deeper. That's why we teach a personal spiritual practice of self-awareness through prayer and through meditation. Quick story. Reverend Kathy Ann Lewis was a very successful religious science minister in Seattle, where we were living at the time, and she wanted a brand new, bright red, shiny Corvette. Now, all of her friends and co-workers tried to talk her out of it. They said it was too expensive for her income, she couldn't afford it, didn't fit the image of a minister, and so forth. She would have none of it. She knew the laws of thought, she knew the creative power they would wield, and she wanted that Corvette. Well, shortly thereafter, within a week or two, she met a car salesman who was in her congregation, who knew about her desire for the Corvette. and a favorable loan officer, and she got a nearly new, bright red, shiny Corvette at an incredibly low price and a payment that she could afford. So there, all you naysayers, that's how you do it. People were absolutely amazed. Shortly thereafter, within a month or so, the Corvette somehow didn't seem so exciting anymore. It was a two-seater, so she could only take one of her friends to lunch at a time. It was kind of hard to get into and out of, really wasn't all that comfortable, and a little too loud for the church parking lot. And with all the hills and misty rain in Seattle, she was constantly spinning the tires. Well, Kathy Ann was a truth student, and she took that dilemma to prayer and meditation and simply asked the question, why did I want this car? Well, the answer came relatively quickly. You see, she was having trouble with her board at the time and wanted to feel more power in her position at the church. And she was a very vivacious person. She wanted things her way. She wanted a little more zip and pizzazz in the services and activities that they had, and even in their classes, which some of the old-timers were frowning upon. So it seems that the Corvette was a cultural projection of the feeling she wanted, but not the real issue. So she sold the car, and she started working more closely and more prayerfully with the more conservative members of her organization. And the last time we heard from her, before we left Seattle, she was doing very well, and that church was absolutely thriving. The point of that story is be careful what you ask for and why you want it. More stuff is usually not the answer. There's another aspect on your spiritual journey that you will experience sooner or later. Charles Fillmore called it chemicalization, and why he called it that, I have no idea. But it goes something like this. Whenever you come across a new, higher spiritual idea or practice that you introduce into your mind and into your life, any older idea, any lesser or negative idea that you have believed in the past will come up, and it will resist. You see, thoughts are things. They're alive within you, and they will fight for their very existence. And with this resistance comes more or less commotion in your consciousness, and using that mind-body connection, physical distress is sometimes experienced. When we think of the collective consciousness of this country, we declared our independence, our birthright, almost 250 years ago with the words, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." And yet at the time, we were far from it. It was a higher spiritual thought in a lesser cultural mindset and an older state of consciousness. And we all know a war eventually ensued. Now, our history from that time until now has been one of steady progress, and yet, as we all know, we've still got a ways to go. That's chemicalization on a group scale, and is the reason why cultural, spiritual growth is sometimes so slow. We tend to hold on to our old ideas, good, bad, or otherwise. For those of you who've recently come from another religious discipline or another church, some of the ideas we talk about here will seem very comforting. I've heard over and over and over again people who come for the first or second time say, you know, I've always believed what you say on Sunday. Well, maybe not always, but most of the time the tone is there. But some ideas will sound foreign, if not diametrically opposed to what you've been taught or what you've come to believe. I'd encourage you to simply hang in there. Take it to prayer. Work with the ideas at your own pace and practice what you feel comfortable with. Now, if you listened to the podcast last week with Shannon and me, we were talking about prayer. And at one point, Shannon looked at me and he remarked, "Oh, well, I've been doing it all wrong then." To which I remarked, no. Just consider this a new approach and a next step. And I think that helped a little bit. You see, there's an old axiom. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear, meaning simply that there are no coincidences. You're here by divine appointment, and it might be time for you to hear something new for your consideration. But remember, as Buddha is often quoted remarking to his students, don't believe anything I say unless you consider it for yourself and it agrees with your own reason and common sense. And remember, even Jesus' disciples talked to him on occasion and said, what you're saying, Master, is hard to believe. So the point of those stories in that part of the talk is simply that a certain amount of turmoil is normal on the spiritual journey. Take it at your own pace, consider it, and do what you think is the right way to go. Oliver Wendell Holmes, great Supreme Court Justice, said this: most people are willing to take the Sermon on the Mount as a flag to sail under, but few will use it as a rudder by which to steer. You know, it's great to belong to a Christian church that's inclusive, positive, and uses a variety of sources to teach personal growth. That's what we do. It feels good. But do we really use these principles in our life? Do we have goals that we want to achieve and a spiritual practice to help us achieve them? Or is it simply feel good on Sunday and back to normal on Monday? The point is this: our greatest desires, our greatest visualizations, our greatest guidance will only take us so far. If we don't act on them, if we do not make the choices that bring these ideas into reality, they remain only daydreams, potential never realized. William Murray was a Scottish mountain climber who led an expedition to Mount Everest in '51. And here's what he said: until one is committed, there is hesitance, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of evidence issued from that decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. I learned a deep respect for one of Goethe's couplets: whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Incredible. Our worldly experience is created through action. It's created through intention, it's created through initiative, commitment, and above all, persistence. And the quality of our experience is determined by our connection to Spirit, understanding what it is that Spirit wants to flow through us, and choosing that as an action plan. We must do our work to prepare ourselves and prepare to walk through the doors that Spirit's open for us. But there's a fine line between what we want and taking personal initiative, following our guidance, and letting God open the door. In the late 90s, I've been involved with Unity for many years, attending services regularly, taking workshops that were offered, speaking occasionally, serving on the board, and so forth. And then one day in the spring, I was walking down a corridor in our church, and a still small voice whispered, "Ministry." And I knew at that moment that I was to become a Unity minister. So I talked with my minister at the time and found out that you had to have an application in by September 1st. Now, this was in the spring, so we've only got a few months. September 1st to be considered for the following June class, and that you needed to have taken 18 one-week classes from Unity teachers to even qualify, to even put in the application, and then be invited for an interview, and then be accepted. Well, he was excited and supportive of my decision, but since I hadn't taken any of those classes, he told me that I was probably at least 2 years away, but he encouraged me to take the classes at a reasonable pace. But being the type A that I was, just like Kathy Ann, right? I assured him that I would find a way to apply for the next year's class. So I went home and I applied all the creative principles that we teach using prayer and meditation and visualization and feeling and all those things. And very shortly after that, I got a call from the VP of Human Relations of the company I worked for. And he said, you know, Doug, the people in the plant that you're in charge of have a habit of banking their vacation time, which has become excessive. And I want you to stop that practice and find a way for them to use up all that accumulated vacation time. And oh, by the way, Mr. Plant Manager, you've got over 7 weeks banked yourself, so start using it up. All right, so we've got just a few months before the application has to be in, and I've got 7 weeks of vacation. Well, you know what happened. I basically took the summer off, and I found all those required classes either at the school or in other churches around the country, and was able to put in my application on time to my minister's surprise, support, and blessing. And I got an interview for the class, which not everybody does. But when the follow-up letter came in the mail, they said, not at this time. They were very supportive of the work and direction I was choosing, but said that I really hadn't spent enough time in it yet, especially taking all those classes within a very short period of time. I was pushing too hard, and encouraged me to keep doing what I was doing and reapply again. And they seem to think that, you know, those that are on fire with all of this are the ones that burn out the quickest. So that was the reasoning behind it. Although I was disappointed, I filed the letter with the thought that when it was time, I would know it. And in the meantime, I continued doing the work in the church that I had been doing and that I loved to do, and that I felt was the right direction for me at the time. Well, 3 years later, I woke up at 4 a.m. from a vivid dream of receiving a letter from Unity School inviting me to the class of 2004. So it's 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting on the side of the bed, and I thought about it and said, okay, it's a 2-year program, so the class of 2004, when they graduate, that means June of 2002, which means when it starts, which means I have to have the application in by September 1st, 2001, which means, holy cow, Batman, I've got 1 month to get in an application. 4 in the morning. So I got busy, I got all the credentials together, and I put in the application. I got another interview, and this time I was accepted. And the acceptance letter was almost verbatim from the dream, matched perfectly. And then the miracles started showing up. Now in 2001, there was a severe recession. Some of you might remember that if you're in business. And it hit the West Coast particularly hard where I was working. And shortly after receiving that acceptance letter from Unity, I found out that the plant where I was working was going to be significantly downsized, then shut down, and I was being let go. But I already had the letter. I knew where I was going. So what that meant is that you can qualify for unemployment, right? Miracle on miracle, I happened to bump into the guy who was the head of unemployment for the whole Seattle area. And just a conversation, he said, "Oh, well, don't worry about that. Here's my card. All you got to do is apply online. And if you have any questions, here's my personal phone number. Call me back." So I applied for unemployment. And for those of you who've ever done that, you know that it normally lasts about 6 months. But due to the recession, it kept on renewing, and that lasted all the way through within a few weeks of me graduating from ministerial school, all the way through. At the same time, when I got that acceptance letter, the administrator of the Unity Church that we were attending quit. And guess who was asked to be the administrator at a significant salary? Penny. The church offered to pay for my tuition and books. And I could tell you for the next half hour, 45 minutes, story after story after story of support from unseen hands that got us through that 2-year period. From a 6-figure salary, a $500,000 house with a mortgage, car payments, and a daughter in college, to ministerial school. We never missed a payment. We were never without funds, and we were never without the things that we needed. The point of that story is to follow up on your dreams. Do your work and prepare yourself for what you want to experience and become. But don't rush the gates of heaven. Don't try to open the doors yourself. Let God prepare the way. And let God open the door for you to walk through, fully prepared and excited to do it. The beauty of this country, this very time and place in which we live, is that there has never been a greater opportunity to fill your dreams and to grow spiritually. These teachings of spiritual empowerment and personal opportunity have not been presented publicly for 2,000 years, and even then, only a few understood them. The chance for higher education to improve yourselves, the wide range of employment opportunities, even in difficult times, our standard of living, a society which actively promotes equal opportunity, and a country rich in resources, relatively unscathed by war and strife, is an incredible blessing. You are here for a reason and not by chance. So don't let this opportunity pass you by. It doesn't matter where you are, what you've done or not done, or what's happened in the past. The important thing is to know simply that you are a child of God, you are an heir to the kingdom, and it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. So take personal responsibility for yourself right now. Embrace these teachings. Put them into your life by taking one step at a time, using the principles you know, and practice, practice, practice. Earlier in this talk, we used a quote by Oliver Wendell Holmes about steering your life using the spiritual principles that Jesus taught. When we reflect on this spiritual journey and living these laws in our life, how to develop the Christ potential we all have within us, I'd like to close with another thought from Oliver Wendell Holmes. Greatness, he says, is not where we stand, but in what direction we are moving. We must sail sometimes with the wind and sometimes against it, but sail we must and not drift, nor lie at anchor. So let's just take a moment and let all of that settle. Take a deep breath. And simply know at a deep level that you are guided and loved in everything you choose to do. And there is a voice, a thought, a feeling, an encouragement, a vision that comes into your life every now and then. that says, look at this. Here's the next step. It's not scary as you think. It's what you're here to become. It's what you're here to experience. And at that level, it is what you are to share with your family and your friends, with the people that you work with. And you are the light of the world. And that voice says to you right now, so take my hand and let us walk hand in hand together. There are things for you to do, and I will open the door for you. We are together once again on this journey, this day, as we have been many, many times before. And so once again, we simply celebrate this opportunity. And we say, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for being right here and right now, guiding me, loving me, showing me the way, and opening those doors. So it is. Amen.
Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Listen to what they're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer.
Time for a quick drink. Well, this is the time in our service when we choose to give thanks, when we can practice the law of giving and receiving, the law of circulation. So I invite you now to simply take your tithes and your offerings in your hand and think of the energy that you put with those gifts. An energy of simply love. An energy that you know those gifts go forward to not only bless this ministry, but through us and the things that we talk about, the songs that we sing, the prayers that we have, go forth to touch your family, your friends, and as we said in the prayer, through us to the community. So let's simply say our offering statement together right now. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I give in love, and I receive in abundance.
Flow, Spirit, flow through me as I open up to be an expression of your unfolding peace. Show, Spirit, show through me as I open up to be an expression of your unfolding love. Flow, Spirit, flow through me as I open up to be an expression of your unfolding peace. Show, Spirit, show through me as I open growing up to be an expression of your unfolding love.
And so we give thanks for these tithes and the offerings. So easily the abundance flows through us. And we give thanks knowing that they go forth to bless this ministry, to bless our lives, to bless this community, and to bless the world. And for this, we are so grateful. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Doug. Now for our announcements. Our newest activity with Laura Noyes called Mindful Movement has been a big hit with everyone. Noyes. I'm sorry.
Noise.
Thank you. She offers here in person from 10:30 to 10:45 on Sunday mornings. It's also being offered on Facebook on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 a.m., so please tune in. It's a great way to start your day, and it is archived, so if you want to check it out, it's there and you can rewatch it. If you're looking for a mindful midweek spiritual boost, tune in to the Midweek Facelift podcast with Shannon and Reverend Doug. It's around 4 p.m. on Wednesdays. We're still taking collections for our outreach program for the homeless, and there's a collection box in the back. We also have a box in the back where you can donate funds over your regular tithing for the building fund. You are very amazing. We have achieved, a building fund has gone from $9,300 to $9,500 in just a week. So, the goal of $10,000 keeps getting closer. On behalf of the board, I want to thank you for your generous donations and support. Okay. And any of you who are thinking about becoming members of Unity of Chattanooga, we're offering a new member class on Zoom in the future. If you're interested, let us know and sign up in the back. You're welcome to attend, even if you just want to learn a little bit more about Unity movement, but don't want to become a member at this time. As you know, next week we'll celebrate the Easter holiday with Reverend Doug as our speaker. Even though the services will be live streamed on Facebook, I hope you'll be able to attend in person. It will be here at the Red Bank Community Center for this special occasion, and please feel free to invite your family and friends. Now that Reverend Doug has completed his talk on the 5 basic Unity principles, you may have some questions. So as Doug had said earlier, on May the 1st, the Sunday services will focus on Ask the Minister. This is your time and your opportunity to ask Unity principles, ask questions about Unity principles, or anything else about the Unity movement. On the center table in the back, again, you'll find the slips that you can fill out and submit your questions and thoughts. As we bring the service to the close, please stand now and join us in the peace movement. Peace song.
Let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. As God our Creator, in oneness all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth and let